All right. Well, thank you very much to everyone who has chosen to join us for our Heritage Hour this evening. We've been doing these Heritage Hour presentations for quite a few years now, and it's a great opportunity for museum professionals across Lambton County to come together and share about a variety of different topics. And tonight we're going to be talking about residents from Lambton County that have gone on to make an impact internationally. And our talk is called Lambton Goes Global. So looking forward to really celebrating the impact that some of our local residents have made across the world, and remembering that great things come from Lambton County, and sometimes we're surprised at these global impacts, but we should really be proud of that and celebrate it. So thank you for being here with us tonight to do that. Our first speaker will be Megan Sinclair. She's Curator Supervisor at the Oil Museum of Canada in Oil Springs. She holds a BA in Classical Archaeology from Wilfrid Laurier University and a Master of Studies degree from the University of Oxford. After toiling as a field archaeologist, Megan decided she'd rather interpret history than dig it up, and has been working at cultural facilities across Ontario for over 15 years, with a particular interest in industrial heritage. Thanks for being with us tonight, Megan.
Thanks, Dana. Oh, hang on. Doing this in the wrong order here. 1 second. Share this and go. All right. Does that look okay?
That looks great.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. So I'm here with the Oil Museum of Canada, and I'm going to share a little bit about Lambton's international drillers. So Lambton County's contribution to the oil industry is one of the most significant ways that this region has made its mark on the world stage. This passport in our collection may look like a simple object, but it represents a much larger story of travel, expertise, and global connections. It belonged to a Lambton oil driller named Ernie Kells, who worked not just here, but internationally as part of a generation of workers who carried Lambton-developed drilling knowledge all around the world. As the oil industry expanded globally, it required not only skilled workers like Kells, but also specialized tools and equipment, many of which were designed and manufactured right here in Lambton County and then shipped across the globe. So how did this small region come to have such an outsized global impact? To answer that question, we need to step back and look at where it all began. So Oil Springs is home to the first commercial oil well in North America, and this was dug by James Miller Williams in 1858, and there's a photo of him there on the left. This discovery sparked an intense wave of speculation and rapid development in the area. A second boom followed in nearby Petrolia in 1865, and it transformed Lambton County into one of the earliest centers of the global oil industry. Because the oil industry was entirely new, there was no established playbook. Drillers had to invent solutions as they went, using whatever material and knowledge were available to them. Tools were often designed, built, and modified on site. And here, I always love these well fishing tools. I just think they're the funkiest looking things. And they were tools that the oil drillers crafted to solve really specific problems. So in this case, it's a tool that's got chopped off and fallen down the well, and so they're fishing tools. They're tools to fish other things out of wells. They're always so interesting. Through this process, Lambton's drillers became some of the first true petroleum experts in the world. Their expertise was hard-earned. They overcame major challenges with access and transportation, working in the remote and muddy Enniskillen swamp. They developed resilience, drilling through dense clay with limited technology. And most importantly, every new obstacle demanded a new solution, which forced constant innovation and practical problem solving, like we saw with those crazy fishing tools. However, this early boom was relatively short-lived. Many wells were quickly depleted, and by the 1870s, falling oil prices led to a regional economic downturn. Lambton's workforce was seeing fewer opportunities at home, and at the same time, the oil industry itself was beginning to expand globally. New oil fields were opening in places like Russia, Austria, and Indonesia, and these regions required experienced workers. Lambton County was uniquely positioned to respond. In the United States, the oil fields were still booming, so the American drillers really had little incentive to leave. In contrast, the Canadian drillers, who were facing a slowdown at home, they were ready and willing to take their skills abroad. So by this point, Lambton's drillers had developed a rare combination of abilities. They understood multiple drilling techniques, they could design and operate specialized equipment, and they had proven themselves as adaptable, resourceful problem solvers in challenging conditions. This combination made them highly sought after, and these drillers became some of the first international oil experts. In many cases, they were responsible for training local workers and helping to establish entirely new oil industries. It's through these international drillers that we first see Lambton truly step onto the world stage. So it all begins in 1873. Four men from Petrolia were paraded by a band down to the Great Western Railway Station, and thus began their 2-month journey to Java, which was then part of the Dutch East Indies. Today it's part of Indonesia. While their search for oil was ultimately unsuccessful there, the expedition sparked something much larger. Over the next 60 years, more than 500 Lambton drillers would travel to 86 countries around the world. So Lambton-trained drillers were often present when the first modern oil wells were being drilled in many countries. They really had a really significant impact on a lot of these early drillings. The one example comes from Persia, which presently that would be both Iran and Iraq. British businessman William Knox Darcy assembled a team to explore the region's oil potential. A petroleum named Duncan Macnaghten, you can see him indicated in the arrow there. He was a key member of that effort. Petroleum was on hand for digging some of the first oil wells in Iran. While doing some research about Macnaghten's involvement, I came across this quote, and I think it kind of speaks to the how much the Lambton drillers were liked. So the quote is, "It is worth noting that Macnaghten remained at the Chiasurk exploration site until the very last moments, unlike some other employees who were among the most incompetent workers Reynolds had ever seen in his life." So obviously Macnaghten was well liked. After years of persistence, the team struck the first commercially successful oil well in Iran in 1908, leading to the formation of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Today, this company is known as British Petroleum. Macnaghten would go on to become the first superintendent of that company. A generation later, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company was still recruiting Lambton drillers. In 1922, Ernie Kells, and his passport is the one that we saw earlier in the presentation, he joined their workforce. Born in Enniskillen Township in 1902, Kells trained as a driller in Petrolia before working across Canada and eventually taking a contract overseas. Kells worked for the Anglo-Persian Oil Company from 1922 to 1931. And in this photo, this is a photo that he took of the Dalpari well number 2 in 1923. So I've got that indicated by the red pin on the map. And then just, I know the Strait of Hormuz is just in the news so much right now. So it's showing its location related to that. So he would have traveled throughout Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, and his passport is completely filled, which is reflecting both the scale of his travels and the complexity of reaching the Middle East at the time. You didn't just hop on a train in Toronto and land in the Middle East. You had to travel for a couple of months to get there. So there's some stamps that he's got from France and Iraq and Lebanon, Egypt. I'm seeing Belgium and Germany. So lots of different places that he traveled to. Here we see part of his contract. It shows that he was required to work 10-hour days and was guaranteed 26 days of work a month. It seems like a lot, but if you're going to be in the middle of Iran, you probably want to work as much as you possibly can and make as much money as you can to come back home to Lambton. He was paid $12 a day, which was roughly double what he would have earned at home. The company provided these drillers with a certain measure of comfort. Also included in his contract was housing, which was sometimes permanent dwellings and other times tents. These are pretty elaborate tents. These aren't, little dinky things in the woods. But he was also given an allowance for food and for hiring servants. While in Persia, Kells worked within a drilling operation that included both imported expertise and local labor. His photo album included numerous photos of Kells with his crew, which he somewhat affectionately captioned as the gang. This suggests a certain degree of familiarity with these workers, even within a structured and unequal system. I've looked at a fair number of these international drillers' albums, and I can say Kells is probably one of the only people that refers to his crew as the gang. After returning to Petrolia, Kells married Hazel Dodge, and he started a family. He purchased an oil property using the wages that he would have earned overseas to establish his life back home. So these drillers, they didn't stay in these international fields. They mostly came back and kind of went on with their lives. Around the same time that Ernie Kells was working in Persia, another Lambton driller, George Rawlings, was building a career on the other side of the world. Born in Petrolia in 1885, Rawlings trained as a driller in Lambton and worked on the railway construction in Northern Ontario. In 1910, he secured his first overseas position in Egypt. He began as a tool dresser, so he was responsible for maintaining and sharpening the drilling equipment, but he quickly advanced. After the company had issues with some of the other crew members, Rawlings was promoted to manage the rig, which was an indication both of his technical skill and his reliability. From there, his career took him around the world. He worked in Egypt, Sierra Leone, Peru, and Ecuador, moving between sites as companies sought experienced drillers to support operations in increasingly remote regions. Like many international drillers, Rawlings maintained close ties to home. Between contracts, he returned to Petrolia, where he spent time with Marie Pritchard. Eventually, he asked her to join him abroad, and the two were married in Panama while he was en route to another posting in South America. Sure, that was quite the wedding. His grandson, Stuart Rawlings, later recalled some of the challenges that his grandfather faced while working in Ecuador, particularly around the realities of operating in such remote locations. Equipment had to be shipped long distances from manufacturing centers in Canada or in England. Even large machinery like bulldozers, which were used to remove well casings, arrived totally disassembled in pieces. They were packed into crates like IKEA furniture, and they had to be reassembled on site during difficult conditions. So I will let Stuart describe the process in his own words here. And let's see if we can get this to work.
In Ecuador, they could only get so close to the coast because the water was not deep enough for them to come in. So they built these huge rafts made out of logs all tied together with binding. I mean, 30 by 40 or something. And then the ship lowered down the crates of the parts of the bulldozer, the motor and the final drives and the tracks, all kinds of stuff. The fuel tank, they're all separate so they could handle them. They lowered them down onto the raft, and then the natives had these long poles. There'd be a whole bunch of them. They'd get it in close to shore as they could, and then they got these donkeys with stone boats, we call them. They drag it. They put the stuff on the crates and stuff on a stone boat, and then maybe even 4, 5, 6 donkeys pulling it, dragging it, and they dragged it into where the location was, where their camp was, and then they put them together with a tripod. They just put 3 poles up in the air, and had a binding around the top, and just an old chain fall, like a double block they call it, to pick up the whole motor. And In Ecuador,
So these guys obviously had an immense amount of experience to be able to assemble a bulldozer. After his final contract in Ecuador, George and Marie Rawlings returned to Lambton County, where he partnered with his father-in-law to run the Stover and Rawlings Drilling Company. These stories reflect the experiences of hundreds of Lambton drillers who worked in the oil fields around the world. Early drillers like Duncan McNaughton helped establish a reputation for technical skills that shaped opportunities for later generations, such as Ernie Kells and George Rawlings. These drillers didn't travel alone. As they moved around the world, they remained connected to the tools, techniques, and networks developed here at home, often working with equipment that they knew, trusted, and could maintain in challenging and remote conditions. And one of the most important of those connections was the Oil Well Supply Company of Petrolia. So the Oil Well Supply Company was founded in 1866 by Hector Mackenzie. He was a machinist. He manufactured iron and brass products. In 1870, Mackenzie amalgamated his operations with James Joyce, who was a local blacksmith. And at that point, the company became the Oil Well Supply Company. And at that time as well, they opened on Robert Street, where the company still operates to today. From these local beginnings, the company expanded quickly. They manufactured a wide range of specialized tools, everything from drilling equipment to repair tools, becoming known for the quality and reliability of their products. And here you have, this is a display that they made that they would take to trade shows with them. And so these are all itty bitty mini versions of oil tools. And it's wonderful and also adorable. And then these are some of the technical drawings that we have in our collection that they would have used in their catalogs. And I just think they're so beautiful for very mechanical things. One of their most influential contributions was the Canadian pole drilling rig. This method was developed in 1866 by William Henry McGarvey and C.J. Webster in response to Lambton County's hard bedrock. The system of drilling used rigid wooden poles rather than flexible cables to drive the drilling bit into the ground. This may sound like a small difference, but it had a major impact. The poles made of black ash, which were found in abundance in Enniskillen Township, would keep the drill bit straight when drilling through hard rock, whereas a cable tool, because of the flexible line, would choose the path of least resistance, creating an uneven well. So when McGarvey traveled to Galicia in modern-day Ukraine in 1881, he encountered similar conditions. He drew on his experience in Lambton County, and he arranged for equipment from the Oil Well Supply Company to be shipped overseas. And he successfully applied the pole tool method there, which helped to transform the oil production in Europe. So you see one of the models that we have of the Canadian drilling rig. We still have it on display now. This is it on display when the museum opened in 1960, as well as our full-scale drilling rig. Once the Canadian pole tool drilling method proved itself, Canadian drilling experts found themselves in demand the world over, and the Oil Well Supply Company began shipping their tools and equipment, including the Canadian rig, to oil fields around the world. And catalogs featured currency conversion pages, so it just goes to show the reach of the company. And then I've just got a couple of examples here from the daybook. So here is Mr. Sinclair, no family relation of mine. He's getting some tools shipped to Australia. And then here is Mr. George Adams. It doesn't say where George Adams is shipping his one wooden rig and derrick, but we know that George Adams was working in Trinidad, so that's likely where that was going. So the story of Lambton on the world stage is not just one of local success, it's a story of movement, of people, skills, and technology traveling far beyond this region and becoming part of a rapidly expanding global industry. From the drillers who carried their expertise overseas to the equipment manufactured in Petrolia and shipped around the world, Lambton played a meaningful role in shaping how and where oil was developed. Looking back, this history reminds us that Lambton's past is not only local, it is deeply connected to the wider world. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Megan. It's great to see that map at the end to really understand the scale of where all of these drillers worked all across the world. It's pretty amazing local story. And some of my favorite artifacts at the Oil Museum are some of the items that the international drillers brought back from all of their travels. So thank you for what you shared tonight. I'm going to highlight a couple different individuals kind of in between our main presenters tonight. Um, the first one I'm going to talk about is Chris Hadfield. Just give me a moment to share slides. Okay. Right. A retired astronaut, Hadfield flew 2 space shuttle missions and served as commander of the International Space Station. He was a fighter pilot in the Canadian military before he was accepted into the Canadian Space Agency astronaut program in 1992. There were over 5,300 applicants and only 4 were selected. Hadfield was not only a brilliant astronaut, but also a charismatic and creative presence and had an amazing advocate for the space program. He filmed interesting experiments in space for school children and tweeted about his extraterrestrial adventures. He even made the first music video in space, very appropriately a cover of David Bowie's Space Oddity. And you can see a screenshot from that on this slide. So what's our local connection to Chris Hadfield? He was born in Sarnia on August 29th, 1959, but he grew up on a farm near Milton. Even though they moved when Hadfield was young, their cottage was located at Stag Island, and the family spent a lot of time there. That was where Hadfield knew with absolute certainty that he wanted to become an astronaut. It happened late in the evening on July 20th, 1969. Hadfield had trekked with his family to a neighbor's cottage, one of the few places on Stag Island that had a television set. He joined an excited group of cottagers to watch the historic moon landing. After Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon, Hadfield went outside and gazed up into the summer sky when the moon was shining. That was when he decided he wanted to become an astronaut. I get goosebumps every time I hear that story. Totally love it. Today, Hadfield continues to treasure Stag Island. He shared more about his summers at the cottage in the book Stag Island, Yesterday and Today. He said, "We water skied mornings, dodged odd jobs, snuck off to canoe, swim, ski, and play all day long, and slept in a screened tent on camp chairs at night. The blue water, warm sun, canals, and sand provided endless variety and adventure." So we should all be very proud to have this connection to Chris Hadfield. Our next speaker is Nicole Azelis from the Lambton County Archives. She's been the archivist supervisor since 2018 and is located in Wyoming, Ontario. Nicole holds a degree in classical archaeology and a postgrad in museums and gallery studies. She also holds an executive MBA specializing in innovative leadership and enjoys researching her family history and local property history. Thanks for being with us tonight, Nicole.
Thanks, Dana. Tonight I am going to talk about Lambton athletes that have gone global. Hopefully you guys can see my screen okay. So from representing Canada on the world stage to competing in elite professional leagues and shaping the next generation through their mentorship, many Lambton County athletes have carried the spirit of this region into international competition. Their achievements are more than personal milestones. They reflect dedication, resilience, and strong support systems. Although we don't have time to cover all of the local athletes tonight that have made it to the international level, we will highlight a few of these stories and learn about their local beginnings and how Lambton County has played a meaningful role in the broader history of multiple sports. We're going to start with Mike Gardner. So born in 1965 in Courtright, Gardner played most of his minor baseball career with the Sarnia Minor Athletic Association system. He began his career in Courtright before moving to Sarnia at age 14. He was 15 years old when he decided to quit hockey and solely focus on baseball, playing with the Sarnia Braves under the direction of Joe Panik. I want to note that he was good at hockey too. He played forward and later defenseman, being told he would be drafted by either a Tier 2 team or the Ontario Junior Hockey League. But by age 10, he already knew that baseball was where he wanted to be. In 1987, during the 18th round of the amateur draft, he was selected by the Seattle Mariners. In September 1990, he was promoted from their Williamsport Bills Eastern AA team to the Seattle Mariners of the American League. As a result of his time with the AA team, he was honored as a top right-handed pitcher and Pitcher of the Year by the Eastern Baseball League when the AA Loop announced its all-star team. Gardner spent 1 month playing with the Mariners. He appeared in 5 games, with 3 as the starting pitcher. He stated in a September 1990 interview that he knew he was in the big leagues when he struck out Jose Canesco, who was one of the most famous hitters for his era. During the offseason of 1991, he was traded to the Boston Red Sox. During his first year with the Red Sox, he was a regular starting pitcher, finishing with an overall .910 mark in 22 starts with a run average of 4.85. He surrendered 140 hits in 130 innings with 79 runs to his 70 earned, 18 homers, and 47 walks. One thing he stated about his first year with the Red Sox that he was proud of was, and I quote, "I went into at least the 5th inning in every start, and there are a few pitchers in baseball who were able to do this. We had only one other guy, Roger Clemens." Montreal took him in the offseason trade as part of their winter caravan in 1993 before he headed to the Detroit Tigers as a middle reliever in the 1994 season. Just a note that Gardner actually first played at Tiger Stadium in a 1984 exhibition game when he was the youngest member of Team Canada representing baseball at the first Olympics. That actually featured baseball, although, and fun fact, baseball at the time was a demonstration sport with only exhibition games, and it became an official sport in the Olympics 8 years later in 1992. It's been on and off, kind of out of there since then. I think it's back next year. At Dodger Stadium was where most of the other exhibition games were played or demonstration games, I should say, in 1984. And he pitched 7 innings and helped earn Canada its only victory in the tournament by beating Japan, who actually was the team who eventually won gold that year. 1994 became one of his best seasons, where Detroit Tigers manager Sparky Anderson considered using him as a starter on a full-time basis. Gardner ended up retiring from the MLB in 1995. So when he was home in Sarnia, he stated that he enjoyed speaking at banquets and inspiring the next generation of athletes. And for those of you watching that may have grown up in Sarnia, you might remember Don and Mabel Gardner, who were his parents, as your baseball instructor, maybe a coach, scorekeeper, driver, or even part of fundraisers. They had a deep passion for the sport, and despite polio ending Don's baseball career, playing days when he was only 19 years old, he shifted his focus from playing to coaching and instructing. So his father passed in 2003, Mabel in 2024, and both of his parents were inducted into the Sarnia-Lambton Sports Hall of Fame in 2004. So next up, although I kind of showed you already, is Priscilla Gagne. So next, she is a world-class martial artist who excelled in judo, wrestling, and karate. She's perhaps best known for her success at judo, excelling at numerous competitions in North America, South America, and Europe. Gagne was born in Granby, Quebec, and moved to Sarnia at the age of 3. Born with retinitis pigmentosa, a genetic eye disorder, Gagne has 4 degrees of peripheral vision and no central vision, therefore she's legally blind. From age 7 to her teens, Gagne tried karate, hockey, gymnastics, karate kempo, and really any other sport that she could, even if she wasn't allowed to spar with others. In her blog, she recalls, and I quote, "In school, they wouldn't let me participate in anything because they considered me high risk. It just irked me. It really upset me, and I remember being so angry and thinking that I could do it." End quote. While attending a school for the blind, she found her footing in goalball and wrestling, where her impairment didn't get in the way of this, as the school had encouraged students to participate in sports. She even played on Canada's national goalball team, while wrestling saw her face able-bodied athletes and win multiple tournaments. In 2010, at the age of 23, she began her journey with judo when seeking an increasingly competitive opportunity, while initially she was competing in wrestling. So despite breaking both of her feet in 2011, her hard work and rise in judo made for her first international success in 2015 when she won bronze at Para Judo World Cup in Hungary. That same year, she earned silver at the Toronto Pan American Games. And in 2016, she made her Paralympic debut at the Rio Games, winning 4th in judo. In 2018, Gagne became the first Canadian woman to win a medal in the Para-Judo World Championships in Portugal, earning a bronze. This same year, when the International Blind Sports Federation combined its Pan American Championship with the Canada Open, she won Pan Am gold for Canada. It was her second career medal at that competition. She also won bronze at the World Cup in Brazil. Gagne was selected as the official flag bearer for the opening ceremony for Team Canada at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Before the Games, she remarked if ever she clinches Canada's first medal in judo, the Paralympic glory goes beyond herself and her coach. Quote, "For judo in Canada, I think it will show the young kids, especially the blind schools, that I've gone to speaking. It will show them to follow your dreams. It will show them that things are achievable. The impossible is possible. And it would show them that it would be the proof that life isn't always easy, but when you stick with it, this is the reward, and whatever that looks like for them," end quote. She ended up winning silver. In the 2024 Paralympics in Argentina, Gagne unfortunately lost her bronze medal match to Argentina's Paula Karina Gomez in the J1 category for athletes with no vision. Despite losing the match, Gagne was really happy for Gomez, who won. She trains at the Judo Canada National Training Center in Montreal under the guidance of coach Andres Sage. She competes in the women's 57 kilogram J1 category and is ranked 5th in the world and 4th in the Paralympic qualification. Although this list is not every international event that she's been part of or won various awards at, it highlights the selection of her numerous achievements at a global scale. Priscilla Gagne has earned the Jack Isom Award from the Sarnia Lambton Sports Hall of Fame in 2019, which honors athletes who have participated in international and/or Olympic Games. In 2024, she was inducted into the Women's Wrestling Hall of Fame under the Amateur Wrestler category. She continues to compete, already winning bronze this year at the IBSA Judo World Cup in Tbilisi 2026. On to golf, we have, of course, Mike Weir. Mike Weir was born in Sarnia in 1970 and grew up in Brights Grove, attending elementary school in Brights Grove and high school in Sarnia. He learned to play at Huron Oaks Golf Course, being mentored by Steve Bennett. Although he grew up playing hockey and played most naturally with his left hand in both sports, he also played baseball and was a member of the Lambton Conference Championship volleyball team out of St. Clair, where he also played basketball. Weir received a scholarship playing golf at Brigham University in Utah from 1989 to 1992. While there, he placed second at the 1990 championships and earned second team All-American honors and was named WAC Player of the Year. We also played on the National World Cup team, where he played courses located in the US, Argentina, Japan, Mexico, Barbados, and China. In 1999, Weir won his first PGA Tour during the Labor Day weekend's Air Canada Championship, located at the Northview Golf and Country Club in Surrey, BC. And he became the first Canadian to win on home soil since 1984, which was the Canada Open, and the first Canadian to win on tour since 1992. And for those historians watching, he was also the first Canadian-born male golfer to win an internationally significant tournament in Canada since 1914. Since 1999, he earned 7 more wins for a total of 8 PGA Tour wins. In addition, Weir was the first Canadian to compete in the President's Cup, appearing in 5 cups in the early 2000s, playing primarily in the US, South Africa, and Canada. A major career accomplishment occurred in 2003. Fans were glued to CBS Sports as Weir clinched a win against Len Mattis on a sudden death playoff hole at the Masters tournament held in Augusta, Georgia. This marked Mike Weir as the first Canadian to win the men's championship, propelling him to global awareness and raising his international profile. Moments after his win, two-time defending champ Tiger Woods presented Weir with a customary green jacket. The news reported that, and I quote, "a cork hit the ceiling in a hotel in the Dominican where Prime Minister Jean Chrétien was on a working vacation. He called Weir by phone to tell him how proud Canadians were of his accomplishment." End quote. The Observer also reported that Weir's high school principal at St. Clair Secondary School, Mr. McGaffrey, stated, "When he won the medal at Q School, he showed what he was always had inside. I honestly believed this day would come. He was a good student all around." As a Masters champ, he also earned an invitation to the PGA Grand Slam in Hawaii. He continues to play golf and has achieved a number of wins, career milestones, and sponsorships since then. In 2004, he started the Mike Weir Foundation, which is dedicated to advancing the physical, emotional, and educational welfare of children. Its first donation was to Blue Water Health. And in 2005, Weir was inducted into the Sarnia-Lambton Sports Hall of Fame. And in 2025, he was inducted into the Canada's Walk of Fame. Last year, he was named the international team captain for the 2025 World Championship Cup, which took place in Clearwater, Florida. Mike Weir continues to compete, and he's making his 27th start this year. So I'd be remiss if I talk about Lambton sports and I don't talk about hockey. So we're going to talk about our final athlete of the night, who played on Team Canada in the 1972 Summit Series, with Canada scoring one of the most dramatic goals in hockey history, and that is Pat Stapleton. So Pat was born in 1940 in Sarnia and played with the Sarnia Legionnaires, helping the team secure 2 Western Junior B championships and 1 Sutherland Cup. Although he was a defenseman, he led the Legionnaires in scoring during his second playing season. After playing with the Legionnaires in the late 1950s, he spent 2 seasons with the St. Catherine Teepees of the Ontario Hockey Association. So while playing with St. Catharines in 1960, Stapleton won the Memorial Cup. In 1961, he was drafted to the NHL and started playing with the Boston Bruins, and spent 9 full seasons in the NHL, starting with Boston, then ending his career with Chicago. He scored 43 goals and 337 points in 635 games. He finished his playing career with 5 years in the World Hockey Association in Chicago, 2 seasons as the Chicago Cougars player coach before the club folded, and then in Indianapolis and Cincinnati. So fun fact, he was also the first pro coach for teenagers Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier with the Indianapolis Racers in 1978 and 79, before the team ended up suspending its operations. So Stapleton was part of one of the most talked about hockey games in history, the 1972 Summit Series, that was organized as a result of Canada's frustration at not being allowed to ice a team of professional players at the World Championships and Olympics, where the Soviets showed up with only their very best. And so September 1972 was arranged to settle bragging rights, best on best, regardless of amateur status. 4 games were held in Canada, so Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, followed by 4 in Moscow. The series opened, and by the end of Game 5 in Moscow, the Canadians were at a disadvantage because of a disastrous loss that put the Soviets in the lead with 3 wins, a tie, and a loss. Basically, Canada had to win the next 3 games to eke out a victory. Canada won the next 2 before heading into the final game on September 28, 1972. In the final, the Soviets built an early lead, but Canada rallied to tie the game. With less than a minute in the 3rd period, Canada instituted a line change. So this is less than a minute left in the game in the 3rd period. Canada instituted a line change that seemed kind of illogical to many to do at the time, but they brought out Paul Henderson on the ice. Henderson immediately jumped on and skated right to the goalie's crease. The puck landed on his stick, and on the second shot, Henderson beat the goalie to give Canada a 6-5 win at 19 minutes and 26 seconds. This goal gave Canada its victory, 4 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie in 8 games. And this goal this series changed hockey forever. The world saw international hockey never had before. Canada Cup and the start of professional hockey being played between nations. Stapleton again represented Team Canada in 1974 Summit Series, and this time he represented as team captain, recording 3 assists in 8 games. After his playing days, Pat grew concerned about the way hockey was being taught to young people in terms of technique and human values. He was humble, and not everyone was aware of the substantial body of work he achieved in the 40-plus years after his playing days. For those accomplishments, he was nominated for the Order of Canada. He was also inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame in 2005 as a member of the 1972 Team Canada, and in 2010, he was elected as an inaugural inductee into the World Hockey Association Hall of Fame. He developed a new holistic approach called Fundamentals in Action, which was sponsored by Pepsi and Canadian Tire to help young players believe in themselves. For this, he developed unique and creative on-ice drills to encourage creativity, something that he saw missing in many players. This program was used by over 1,300 communities from Newfoundland to Vancouver, and even the U.S. national junior team program prevailed. They came up and asked him to redesign their approach. He also spoke at local high schools and elementary schools. His message was simple: live properly and do the best you can. He often posed 3 basic questions to students. What do you want in life? What will you sacrifice to get it? And are you willing to do the work? Prior to his passing in 2020, Pat was visiting educators across Canada to discuss his leadership program. It's called 28,800 Seconds, The Power of Teamwork, a reference to the time it took to play the 8 games against the Soviets in 1972. It stresses leadership and perseverance, resiliency, and the importance of teamwork. His efforts were featured in major Canadian newspapers and in the New York Times. In 2022, the Sarnia Arena was renamed the Pat Stapleton Arena in his honor. Although this is by no means every international athlete by Lambton County, for example, there's Dominique Pegg, Carrie Fraser, Julie Greenshields, Derek Drouin, Wayne Merrick, Tyler McGregor, and really so many more that have shown that the story of Lambton County athletes reaching the global stage goes far beyond the medals, sponsorships, or titles. It's the lasting influence of a community that fosters dedication, resilience, and perseverance. From local beginnings to international events, these athletes continue to inspire the next generation. As we reflect on their achievements, we can see that those mentioned today, along with many others, are not just part of sports history. They're part of building a sports future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nicole. It was always fun to see Pat Stapleton and learn a little bit more about his career. He was one of the players that we featured in our hockey exhibition here at the Heritage Museum. Back in 2024, we had a signed stick from the 1972 game that a member of the public had loaned us to display during the exhibit. So thank you. I'm going to share about one more local individual who had an international impact. Give me a moment. Oops. Gotta share the right one. And this is David Alexander Maxwell. He was born in 1861 and died in 1930. Maxwell apprenticed as a blacksmith with John Bainbridge in the local village of Watford, where he opened a successful blacksmith shop. He was known for his creativity and for being an inventor. After the development of Henry Ford's quadricycle in 1896, David started building his own horseless carriage, which he called the Maxmobile. The engine block was cast by the local Doherty foundry in Watford, where David bent and machined the crankshaft himself. The result was a single-cylinder engine with a 4-inch bore and a 6-inch stroke that drove the left rear wheel with a chain. The Maxmobile was completed in 1900 and became the first automobile in all of Canada. Although it never developed into the phenomenon we saw with Henry Ford's factories in Detroit, the Maxmobile is still a wonderful story of local ingenuity and innovation. By 1910, David decided to modernize his automobile. He extended the dashboard and brought the floorboards under the seat to protect the passengers, which was in response to an incident in which his wife's skirts were torn off by the drive chain. Pneumatic tires were also added to improve the ride. The Maxmobile was capable of speeds of up to 20 miles per hour and had a range of 50 miles. And the vehicle is now housed at the Old Fire Hall Museum in Watford, which is open in that community for special events. So keep an eye out when there's something going on in Watford if you'd like to go and check out the Maxmobile.
Thank you, and good evening. Here are photos of some big names of the silver screen from years gone by. I'm sure you recognize many, if not most of these folks. However, can you name the actor with whom all of them worked? Well, what they have in common is that Bruce Boa, a one-time resident of Forest, appeared in films with all of them. So who was Bruce Boa? I first heard about him from my mother. It was back in 1979 while I was watching the television miniseries A Man Called Intrepid. The series was based on the life of William Stevenson, a Canadian-born spy master during the Second World War. Anyway, while I was watching the film, my mother mentioned that she had gone to school in Forest with one of the actors, namely Bruce Boa. In the film, Boa had only a minor role, playing a jump master, helping paratroopers exit their aircraft. But in the image you can see on the right here, he's on screen with Michael York on the right. Okay. Now, and I'll provide you with a partial list of some of Boa's many performances shortly. First, though, I'll share with you what I have learned about his early life and how it came to be that he made it to the silver screen. Bruce was the son of Andrew Boa, a United Church minister, and Isla Jane Boa. Andrew was from Perth County, while Isla, whose main name was Finn, was from London. Andrew and Isla married in London in 1927, and the couple had 3 children. And here they are. There's Marion, the eldest, who was born in London in 1928, and then Bruce, who was born in Port Stanley, where his father was then serving as United Church minister in 1930, and Fraser was born a couple of years later, also in Port Stanley. According to Marion, it was shortly after Fraser's birth that tragedy struck the family when her mother contracted tuberculosis, and I unfortunately was not able to find a photo of Isla. So during the time of her mother's illness, Marion was greatly relied upon to look after Bruce and Fraser. To entertain her brothers, she improvised plays for them to perform in. These plays, Marion recalled, were heavily influenced by life growing up in a parsonage, with births, weddings, and funerals being the predominant themes. Participating in these childhood dramas obviously had great influence on Bruce in terms of his future career on stage, but also had much influence on Marion and Fraser and their career paths, as the siblings would both become prominent psychotherapists. Marion later described living in, quote, an archetypal world during this period of her life. And so here's the Port Stanley United Church. Now, fortunately, Isla survived her illness, and in 1936, the family relocated to Norwich, where Andrew had assumed new pastoral duties. In 1941, the family left Norwich and moved to Forest, where Reverend Boa began his nearly decade-long leadership of Forest United Church. Marion would have been about 13, Bruce about 11, and Fraser 9. Now, this photo shows the house on Wellington Street in Forest, where the family lived at this time, and I'll have something interesting to share about it, the house, at the end of my presentation. During their formative years in Forest in the 1940s, the Boa children attended local schools, including Forest Public School and Forest High School, as it was then known. Just as an aside, Marion briefly taught English and Latin at Forest High School in the early 1950s, and I found this staff photo showing Marion in a 1951 yearbook for the school. Now, getting back to Bruce, in a short bio published in the Montreal Star in 1959, he revealed that at age 14 he ran away from home and spent some time working as a deckhand on Great Lakes oil tankers. It appears, though, that his life as a deckhand was of short duration. and I came across a newspaper report from March of 1946, which tells of Bruce, then age 15, winning the Junior Boys Western Ontario Secondary School Association Oratorical Contest. His winning speech was titled Making the Peace. I'm just guessing that the content of his talk had to do with efforts to maintain peace in the post-Second World War era. Bruce and the other contestants were also required to give an impromptu speech. His was on the theme of gardening. And my mother remembered hearing Bruce speaking on the radio right about this time. In all, he won 3 awards for his speech making. Now, Bruce was also very active in church youth groups, serving as a delegate at conventions as far away as Sault Ste. Marie. Closer to home, he demonstrated his interest in following in his father's footsteps when, in 1950, at Thetford United Church, he, quote, gave an evangelistic message to members of the Lambton Presbytery. Apparently, Bruce had also developed a knack for singing at a young age. At a Young People of the United Church convention in Sault Ste. Marie in 1949, at which he was a delegate, Bruce was noted by the Sault Star newspaper as having led, quote, a rousing sing-song that brought the first day of the convention to a perfect close. After graduating from high school, Bruce's life in the 1950s had many twists and turns, driven by a wide range of passions. He first headed off to the University of Western Ontario, where, obviously considering following his father's footsteps, he studied theology. While at UWO, the 6'2", over 200-pound Boa cracked the lineup of the Western Mustangs football team, which was then led by legendary coach Johnny Metris. So you can see Bruce at the back, at the top there. And Johnny Metris is the gentleman in the suit in the second row on the far right there. In 1952, however, Boa dropped out of his university program and headed west to Vancouver. That summer, he enrolled in the UBC's Summer School of Theatre. The Vancouver News Herald reviewed a comedy play he performed in called Ring Around the Moon. The newspaper reported that, quote, Bruce Boa was suavely despondent as an unwilling millionaire. In another of the many twists and turns of Boa's life during the 1950s, September found him on the roster of the Calgary Stampeders football team. Unfortunately, a knee injury kept him out of action for much of the season. This newspaper clipping references Boa reporting for his workout for the team. And the next one here mentions his injury after a game against Winnipeg. After leaving the Stampeders, Boa headed south to Mexico and then Panama, spending a year, as he said, quote, just drifting and writing poetry. 1953, though, found him back in Canada, this time at Queen's University in Kingston, where he honed his acting skills with the Queen's Drama Guild and starred in its review productions. He also assumed assistant coaching duties for the Queen's Golden Gales football squad. In the fall of 1954, Bruce left his coaching duties with the Gales and headed west again. This time not to pursue football or acting, but instead to enroll in the theological seminary at Winnipeg, with the intention of fulfilling his original aspirations of becoming a preacher. But he only lasted 5 months in the program before his wanderlust overtook him, and he decided to head overseas to Britain to try his luck at acting. This clipping from a Kingston newspaper reveals that Bruce soon started landing significant roles on stage and on British TV. His breakthrough came in 1960 when he landed a bit part in the science fiction comedy Man in the Moon, starring Kenneth More and Shirley Ann Field. What is especially notable about this movie is that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip attended its premiere. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Boa enjoyed considerable success, landing roles in numerous Hollywood and British films. He established himself as a reliable character actor. His imposing build and deep voice made him a natural fit for authoritative roles, particularly military and government figures. In 1964, and I'm not going to, as I said earlier, I'm not going to tell you about all the films he was in. I'm just going to highlight a few here. So 1964, he joined fellow Canadian actor Al Waxman in Man in the Middle, starring Robert Mitchum. In 1968, he appeared in The Cherry Picker with Lulu and Spike Milligan. In 1969, he played a detective in The Adding Machine, starring Phyllis Diller. In 1970, he had a role in The Revolutionary, headlined by Jon Voight and Robert Duvall. In 1974, he appeared in the science fiction film Who, starring Elliot Gould and Trevor Howard. In 1976, he played an assistant to Gregory Peck and Lee Remick in the classic horror movie The Omen. In 1978, he acted in Superman, the most expensive film made to that point in history, and it starred Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, Christopher Reeve, of course, and fellow Canadian Margot Kidder. Now, this is a scene here from The Omen. So you can see Bruce on the left, and that's Gregory Peck on the right. The 1980s also saw Bruce appearing in some big name films. He had a part in 1981's Ragtime with legendary actor James Cagney in the lead role. And by the way, Samuel L. Jackson had a minor role in this film early in his acting career. In 1980, Boa played General Riken in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, a role that endeared him to the Star Wars fan community. And so here's a neat shot of him with Carrie Fisher over here on the right from that film. Boa also played an army officer in Stanley Kubrick's 1987 Full Metal Jacket, barking orders at the lead character, played by Matthew Modine. Bruce's last film was the 1995 science fiction horror Screamers, starring Peter Weller and Jennifer Rubin, in which he played Secretary Green. Throughout his career, Boa was also a prolific presence on British television, with roles in series such as The Avengers, Doctor Who, and The Professionals. His ability to convincingly portray Americans earned him steady work in productions requiring a transatlantic flavor. He is perhaps most famously remembered on television, though, for his appearance with John Cleese as hotel owner Basil Fawlty in the beloved British sitcom Fawlty Towers. In the so-called Waldorf Salad episode, he played Mr. Hamilton, a demanding American guest whose insistence on proper hospitality hilariously clashed with Basil Fawlty's ineptitude. Boa also had parts in numerous North American television productions, including Remington Steele, Heart to Heart, and Road to Avonlea, where he played the character of Mr. Harrison. Off-screen, Boa was known as a private and reserved individual. He retired from acting in the late 1990s and spent his later years away from the public eye. Bruce Boa passed away on April 17, 2004 in Surrey, England, leaving behind a legacy of memorable performances that continue to entertain audiences worldwide. And to think that he delivered his first broadcaster performance while a student at Forest High School. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have something to share, something additional to share with you about the house on Wellington Street in Forest where the Boas lived. The house is currently owned by the Finch family. And Murray Finch shared with me that in 2010, he and his family were paid a nostalgic visit by Bruce's sister, Marion, who would then have been about 82. Before she left, she handed this note of thanks to the Finches. It identifies the members of her family and then says, quote, "Fabulous years living in this great parsonage. Thank you for allowing me to remember." And I just want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thanks. Bye-bye.